Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're sort of putting on our instructor hats.
That's right.
And your syllabus, if you will, for this session, it covers the real bedrock of information security management. We're talking clauses 4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4 of ISO/IEC 27000.2018.
Yeah, the foundational stuff.
Think of this as your streamlined guide, your quick start to understanding the essentials of information security management systems, or ISMS. Our mission today is really to unpack these initial clauses, make them, not just understandable, but immediately valuable no matter where you're coming from with info security.
Precisely. And ISO/IEC 27000, that's the source. It's basically the big picture overview for the whole ISMS family of standards.
Right.
And these first clauses, they're like the core principles. We're going to break them down step by step, show why they're so fundamental, and how they actually build that foundation for protecting information effectively.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let's kick things off with Clause 4 itself, titled Information Security Management Systems.
The main event.
Exactly. And first up, within that is Section 4.1, just called General. Now, sometimes these general sections can seem a bit basic, maybe even stating the obvious.
They can feel that way.
Yeah.
But this one really does lay essential groundwork. It paints a picture of the universal reality for pretty much any organization today.
So what are the absolute must-knows from 4.1?
Okay, so it highlights 4 key truths, really. First, every single organization, doesn't matter how big, small, what industry, they all collect, process, store, and transmit information.
Just unavoidable, right? Think about the sheer amount of data you handle every day.
Absolutely. Customer details, internal comms, financial data, it's everywhere. Second key point, this information and everything connected to it, like the systems, the people, they're critical assets. They're vital for actually achieving what the organization sets out to do.
Makes sense.
Third, because this stuff is so valuable, organizations are constantly facing, a whole range of risks that can threaten these assets.
Like what kind of risks are we talking about?
All sorts, from deliberate attacks, human error, technical failures, even natural disasters.
Okay.
And fourth, naturally, organizations try to deal with these perceived risks by implementing various information security controls. Those are the measures you put in place.
So whether you're like a small local shop or a giant multinational, you've got this valuable information that needs protecting from, well, everything.
Exactly. And the standard really hammers home that all this information has inherent weaknesses, vulnerabilities, we call them.
Right.
And it's constantly under potential threat. Threats that could impact its availability. Can you get to it when needed?
Okay.
Its confidentiality, is it kept secret from those who shouldn't see it? And its integrity, is it accurate? Has it been messed with?
That's the classic CIA triad, isn't it? Confidentiality, integrity, availability.
That's the one. It's absolutely foundational. Confidentiality, keeping secret, like, say, customer payment details. Integrity, ensuring the info is correct and hasn't been altered, like your financial records. And availability, making sure you can access the information and systems when you actually need them. No unexpected downtime.
Yeah, if any one of those fails.
Yeah.
Big trouble. Customer data leak, corrupted accounts, system outage. It's bad news.
It really is. And Clause 4.1 also links this directly to sort of business efficiency, the day-to-day running of things.
No.
Well, it points out that having accurate, timely information available to the right people, the authorized users, is crucial for efficiency.
Right. If people can't find what they need, or if it's wrong.
Productivity just tanks. But it's more than just efficiency. The clause stresses this ongoing need to define, achieve, maintain, and improve information security.
So it's not a set it and forget it deal.
Not at all. It's a continuous cycle. And it's all about supporting business goals, meeting legal and regulatory obligations, and even enhancing the organization's image and reputation.
Okay, so it's not just about defense, stopping the bad stuff. It's also proactive, building a strong, secure base that actually helps the organization succeed.
You've got it. And that naturally leads into this idea of actively managing information security.
Which involves?
It involves coordinating all the activities needed to put the right security measures, the controls in place, and also to treat any risks that are considered unacceptable.
Okay.
And a really vital point here, the risk landscape and the effectiveness of your controls, they're always changing, they're dynamic.
New threats pop up all the time.
Exactly. So organizations have to constantly monitor how well things are working, evaluate performance, spot new emerging risks, and then adapt their controls and strategies accordingly. Definitely.
Sounds like that continuous cycle again. Check, learn, adapt, repeat.
That's the essence of it. And the end goal of all this, according to 4.1, is to have a clear information security policy and defined objectives, all achieved through a proper management system.
Got it. So 4.1 really sets the stage, explains the why security is fundamental, and introduces these core ideas: threats, vulnerabilities, info as an asset, and the need for this proactive, evolving management approach.
Spot on. That's 4.1 in a nutshell. It lays the groundwork.
Okay, good foundation. So we've covered the why. Now let's move into 4.2. What is an ISMS? This sounds like where we get the actual definition and the principles behind it.
It does indeed. Clause 4.2 kicks off with an overview and then lays out these fundamental principles for what an ISMS actually is.
So what's the definition?
It defines an ISMS as basically a collection of policies, procedures, guidelines, resources, people, tech, budget, and all the activities an organization manages together to protect its information assets.
So it's much more than just, say, having a firewall or some antivirus.
Oh, absolutely. It's the whole systematic framework. The standard calls it a systematic approach for establishing, implementing, operating, monitoring, reviewing, maintaining, and improving information security.
Wow, that's a lot of ings.
It is, but it highlights the continuous nature, and it's all geared towards achieving the organization's business objectives.
Okay.
And crucially, it's founded on risk assessment. Understanding your risks and deciding what level of risk is acceptable. That's key for managing risk effectively.
So risk management is right at the heart of it.
Absolutely central. Analyzing what protection you need and then applying the right controls, that's how you successfully implement an ISMS.
And didn't you say there were some fundamental principles mentioned here too?
Yes, 9 of them in 4.2.1. They really form the guiding philosophy. I want to run through them quickly.
Yeah, let's get the highlights.
Okay. First, awareness. Everyone needs to know why security matters. Second, responsibility. Clear roles assigned.
Makes sense.
Third, management commitment in considering stakeholder interests. You need buy-in from the top, and you need to think about customers, partners, etc. Fourth, enhancing societal values. Doing security ethically.
Okay.
Fifth, risk assessments determine the controls. Don't just guess. Sixth, security as an essential element. Build it in, don't bolt it on later.
Right. Proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. Seventh, active prevention and detection of incidents. Try to stop them, but be ready to spot them fast if they happen. Eighth, a comprehensive approach, security across the whole organization. And ninth, continual reassessment and modification. Always improving.
Those 9 points really drive home that security isn't just a tech issue. It's deeply embedded in culture, process, management, everything.
Totally. From the very top to the very bottom. Now, 4.2 also gets more specific, right?
Yeah.
It has subsections on information, information security, management, and management system.
Yeah, let's unpack those. Starting with 4.2.2, information. What's the key message there?
It basically reinforces that idea we already touched on.
Yeah.
Information is a core business asset.
Needs protecting.
Needs protecting, yes. And it gives examples of the forms information takes. Digital files, obviously, but also physical paper document.
Right, like contracts or reports.
And even what it calls unrepresented information, which is essentially the knowledge inside employees' heads.
Interesting. That's an asset too.
Definitely. It also mentions different transmission methods, electronic, courier, even just talking. The point is, no matter the form or how it moves, it might need protection.
So sensitive data on a server, a confidential file in a cabinet, an important detail shared in a meeting, it's all information in this context.
Exactly. And it knows how dependent most organizations are now on ICT information and communications technology for the whole life cycle, creating, processing, storing, moving, protecting, destroying info.
Okay, clear enough. Let's move to 4.2.3, information security. How does this clause specifically define that term?
Right. So here it explicitly defines information security as ensuring confidentiality, availability, and integrity.
Back to the CIA triad again.
Yep. Keeps coming back because it's fundamental. It adds that achieving this involves applying and managing appropriate controls, considering all the various threats.
And the goal is?
The aims are stated as sustained business success and continuity, and minimizing the impact if incidents do happen.
Okay. And how is this achieved, according to the clause?
Through an applicable set of controls. Things like policies, processes, procedures, organizational structures, software, hardware.
The practical tools and rules.
Exactly. Chosen via risk management, managed by the ISMS. And these controls need to be specified, implemented, monitored, reviewed, and improved.
Is that continuous cycle again?
Always. To meet security and business objectives. And importantly, the expectation is that these controls integrate seamlessly with business processes. Security shouldn't be this awkward add-on.
Yeah, that seamless integration sounds vital. You don't want security measures constantly getting in the way of people doing their jobs effectively. Okay, next up in 4.2 is management. Subsection 4.2.4. What's the focus here?
This defines management in the organizational sense. Directing, controlling, continually improving the organization within its structure.
So standard management functions.
Pretty much. Organizing, handling things, directing, supervising, controlling resources. It knows structures vary by size, obviously.
Right. A small startup versus a huge corporation will look different. How does this relate specifically to an ISMS?
Well, in the ISMS context, management means supervising and making decisions to achieve business objectives by protecting information assets.
Okay, so the management function applied to information security goals.
Precisely. And this management direction is expressed through policies, procedures, guidelines, applied throughout the organization by everyone involved.
Got it. Management sets the tone, provides the resources, and ensures the rules are followed. Okay, last part of 4.2. Subsection 4.2.5, management system. What's the definition here?
Broadly, a management system is defined as a framework of resources used to achieve objectives.
A framework. Like what?
It lists components: organizational structure, policies, planning activities, responsibilities, practices, procedures, processes, and resources. All the building blocks.
So our ISMS is just a specific type of management system focused squarely on information security.
You nailed it. And this clause spells out what having a management system like an ISMS allows an organization to do.
Such as?
Satisfy security requirements from customers and other stakeholders. Improve security plans and activities. Meet its own information security objectives. Comply with laws and regulations.
This is pretty comprehensive.
And manage assets in an organized way that supports continual improvement and adjustment to changing needs.
Okay, so implementing an ISMS as this specific management system gives you that structure, that systematic way to handle security and align it with the bigger business picture.
Exactly. It's the framework for being proactive and effective in protecting those vital information assets.
All right, clause 4.2 covered thoroughly. Let's shift gears now to 4.3, which is called process approach. This sounds like it's about how the work actually gets done within the ISMS.
That's a good way to think about it. Clause 4.3 starts by saying that, for organizations to work well efficiently, they need to manage lots of different activities.
Makes sense.
And it defines a process as basically any activity that uses resources to turn inputs into outputs, usually through a series of related steps.
Like the baking a cake analogy you used earlier.
Yeah, something like that. Inputs, ingredients, energy, time, activities, mixing, baking, output, cake. And it notes that one process's output often feeds into another process as an input.
So things are interconnected.
Very much so. And usually done under planned, controlled conditions.
Yeah.
This leads to the idea of the process approach.
Which is?
Applying a system of processes within the organization. It involves identifying all the relevant processes, understanding how they interact, and then managing them as a coherent system.
So the ISMS itself isn't just a pile of documents. It's a living system of interconnected processes working together for security.
That's a really good way to put it. Understanding and managing these processes helps make security much more consistent, repeatable, and ultimately effective.
Okay, process approach, understood. That brings us to the last section in this initial dive. Clause 4.4, why an ISMS is important. We've touched on a lot of reasons already, but what does this clause specifically emphasize?
Clause 4.4 really brings it all home. It stresses the absolute necessity for organizations to tackle the risks tied to their information assets.
Can't ignore them.
Can't ignore them. It reiterates that getting security right needs this comprehensive, integrated risk management approach.
Yeah.
Considering physical threats, human factors, tech threats, affecting all forms of information.
It's a strong reminder it's not just about hackers. Physical security matters. Insider threats matter. The whole picture.
Precisely. And it frames adopting an ISMS as a strategic decision. It needs to be integrated, scaled appropriately for the organization, and kept up to date with changing needs and threats.
So no one-size-fits-all ISMF.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
The design, the implementation, it's all influenced by the organization's specific needs. Security requirements, business processes, size, structure. It has to be tailored.
Makes sense. A small charity's ISMS will look very different from a global bank's.
Absolutely. And it also highlights looking outwards, considering the interests and security requirements of all your stakeholders.
Like customers, suppliers.
Customers, suppliers, business partners, shareholders, regulators, third parties, anyone with a stake in your security. Especially now, with everything so interconnected. Your partner's weak security could become your problem.
That's a huge point in today's world. Your supply chain, your partners, their security impacts yours directly.
Massively. The clause then gives a bit of a reality check, listing common threats, fraud, espionage, sabotage, vandalism, fire, flood.
The traditional stuff.
Right, alongside the modern digital threats, malware, hacking, denial of service attacks. And it makes the point these are getting more frequent, more ambitious, more sophisticated.
Scary stuff.
Which reinforces why an ISMS is vital. Public sector, private sector, any industry. It's seen as an enabler for e-business and just essential for managing risk today.
So the complexity and the evolving threats are really driving the need for this structured approach.
They really are. The clause also mentions the growing difficulty of controlling access and handling information, especially with interconnected networks and things like USB drives or mobile devices everywhere.
Yeah, data just walks out the door sometimes.
It can. These things can weaken older, more traditional controls if you're not managing them properly within an ISMS.
Okay.
But there's a benefit highlighted too. Adopting standards like this helps you demonstrate consistent, recognized security principles to partners and others, builds trust.
That trust factor seems huge for business relationships now, showing you take security seriously.
It really is. The clause also points out a common pitfall. Security often isn't considered early enough when systems are designed.
Right, it's seen as something you add on later.
Often, yeah.
Fair.
Mistakenly viewed as just a technical fix you can bolt on. But the standard argues technical measures alone are limited without proper management and procedures, the stuff an ISMS provides.
And trying to retrofit security later is usually harder and more expensive.
Much harder, much more costly. An ISMS forces you to plan, identify controls, and think strategically from the beginning.
It's that holistic view again, not just tech. It then gives an example, right? Access controls.
Exactly. It uses access controls, technical ones like passwords, physical ones like locks, administrative ones like policies, or a mix as an example of a control used to ensure only authorized people get access based on business and security needs.
A practical application of the principles.
Yep. And finally, 4.4 wraps up by summarizing the key benefits an organization gets from a successful ISMS.
Okay, let's hear the bottom line benefits.
Greater assurance of continuous, adequate protection against threats. A structured framework for managing risk, identifying, assessing, treating, monitoring controls.
Okay.
Fostering continual improvement in the security environment, and more effective achievement of legal and regulatory compliance.
So it boils down to being more resilient, more trustworthy, more compliant, and better equipped for today's complex world.
That's a great summary. It's about providing that actionable framework to protect what's often your most valuable asset, your information.
Well, that brings us to the end of this particular deep dive, covering clauses 4, 4.1 through 4.4 of ISO IE 27000. It seems really clear that these sections lay down the absolute fundamentals.
They really do. What an ISMS is, why it's so crucial, and the basic thinking needed to start establishing one.
And it's definitely more than just tech, isn't it? It's this blend of technology, people, processes, all guided by that management system.
Absolutely. It's holistic. And hopefully, as you've listened, you've been thinking about how these concepts apply in your own world to the information you manage.
Yeah, maybe it sparked some thoughts about your own current practices where a more structured ISMS approach might help.
Could be. And if you are looking to go deeper from here,
What are the next steps?
well, you could look into risk assessment methodologies.
Yeah.
Section 4.5.3 mentioned them, and ISO AC 27005 goes into detail.
Okay, risk assessment or...
Or you could start looking at the specific requirements in ISO AC 27001. That's the standard you actually get certified against, the one that specifies what your ISMS must include.
Right, 2701 is the how-to specification.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, given the threat landscape we're all facing, implementing and maintaining a strong ISMS isn't really optional anymore, is it? It's become a necessity for any organization serious about protection, resilience, and long-term success.